When night falls over the city of Columbia, South Carolina, the streets gradually sink into silence. Dim streetlights cast a pale glow on the sidewalks, just enough to blur the shapes moving slowly through the shadows. Somewhere in the distance, a dog barks into the stillness, and the damp breath of summer night creeps along brick walls, clinging to stories left untold stories. No one wants to remember, but no one can truly forget. In that hush, some figures pass without leaving a trace. No footsteps, no voices, no memories. They are ghosts in a living city. But then there are nights, rare, terrible nights, when time seems to stop, when space turns dense and suffocating, and death leaks out from the cracks of the world without warning or mercy. It was the summer of 2002, a summer the people of Columbia would never forget. The young man walked into the night carrying a secret darker than the shadows that swallowed him. His face showed no anger, no fear, no remorse, only emptiness. People would come to know him as Quincy Javon Allen. But to those who lived through the nightmare he brought, that name would not just be a label. It would become a symbol of chaos, a haunting echo of a mind lost to the abyss. Allen didn't look like a killer, not the kind you see on TV with twisted grins and wild eyes. He was lean, quiet, with sharp features and a gaze that rarely gave anything away. He passed through life like a shadow, unnoticed, undefined, deadly. But what chilled people wasn't just what he did. It was how he did it calmly, coldly, deliberately. This story didn't begin with blood. It began with a whisper from the dark, a quiet urge, an undefined itch beneath the skin. Something in Allen shifted. Or maybe it had always been there waiting for the right moment. On an early morning in July before the sun had risen, Allen stepped into Finley Park and pulled the trigger on a sleeping homeless man. No warning, no reason. Just a single shot cracking through the quiet, and the spree began. No one, not prosecutors, psychologists, nor his own attorneys, could fully explain what went on in Quincy Allen's mind. Perhaps he was schizophrenic, as some claimed. Perhaps he was a storm of childhood trauma, untreated illness, and societal alienation. But whatever the cause, the aftermath was undeniable. Allen left behind a trail of fire bullets and broken families. Just days after that first killing, he struck again. His second victim, Dale Yvonne Hall, was a middle-aged woman. Allen shot her in the head, face, and legs with a sawed-off shotgun. Then, in a chilling display of composure, he bought gasoline from a nearby station and torched her car. Was he trying to destroy evidence, or was it part of something larger, some twisted ritual he never explained? With each kill, Allen seemed to descend further into destruction. He didn't hide. He didn't run, at least not yet. He acted as though he were untouchable, as though the normal rules of right and wrong, of justice and consequence, did not apply. He set cars on fire, returned to the scenes of his crimes, and chose his victims not by motive, but by opportunity. What terrified investigators most was not just the violence. It was the randomness. Allen's victims came from all walks of life: a homeless man, a woman in her 40s, a restaurant worker, a man at a gas station. There was no consistent profile, no thread of personal connection. He didn't kill out of revenge or ideology. He killed because something in him told him to, and that was enough. Then came the most tragic night of all. Brian Marquis had just proposed to his girlfriend. It was supposed to be a beautiful memory, the night he'd always remember as the start of a new life. He was off work, celebrating quietly with friends. But when his fiancée asked him to return briefly to the restaurant, he went unaware that his best friend Jedediah Har was about to be shot dead in the car by Quincy Allen. The same Allen who had once stood at the same restaurant quiet and unassuming. The same Allen who just hours before had tried to set another car on fire in a parking lot not far away. Each page of Allen's case files reads like something torn from a horror novel, except it was all real. By the time he was arrested in Texas 6 days after vanishing from Colombia, he had left at least 4 confirmed victims and a nation grasping for answers. Yet even then, there was no sense of closure. When officers found Allen sleeping in a car at a rest stop, it was not relief that washed over them. It was dread. If someone like him could walk among us unnoticed for so long, how many others might be out there? How many quiet young men with empty eyes and hollow hearts are waiting to be pushed over the edge? This is not just the story of a killer. It's the story of fear, raw, unpredictable, and close to home. It's about how the face of evil doesn't always come twisted or deformed. Sometimes it looks normal. Sometimes it smiles. Sometimes it walks past you at the gas station and holds the door open. And sometimes it carries a sawed-off shotgun. July 7, 2002, the Park execution. It started in silence. At approximately 300 a.m. in Columbia's Finley Park, a quiet open space in the city's downtown, a man lay sleeping on a bench. He was homeless, nameless to many, invisible to most, but not to Quincy Allen. Without provocation, without even waking the man, Allen raised his sawed-off 12-gauge shotgun and pulled the trigger. The blast shattered the quiet night. The man survived miraculously, though gravely injured. Allen slipped away into the dark before anyone could react. The incident was written off at first as another random act of violence in an area too used to tragedy. But for Allen, it was only the beginning. The act had stirred something in him, something hungry. He would not wait long to feed it again. July 10, 2002, fire and flesh. Only 3 days later, Allen struck again. This time, the target was 45-year-old Dale Yvonne Hall. The circumstances were chillingly casual. Allen approached Hall while she was seated in her car, fired at her multiple times, once in the head, once in the face, once in the leg. It was precise, deliberate, clinical. But what followed was even more disturbing. Allen drove the lifeless body and her vehicle to a remote area. He bought gasoline from a nearby station, doused the car, and set it ablaze. Flames licked the night sky as if to erase the evidence, or perhaps to celebrate the kill. Police recovered the charred remains soon after, but with no immediate suspects and no clear motive, the case stalled. Allen, meanwhile, felt emboldened. August 8, 2002, celebration turned to grief. Almost a month passed before Allen killed again. But this time, it was different. That night, Brian Marquis had just proposed to his girlfriend. After a quiet dinner at the restaurant where he worked Texas Roadhouse, he received a call asking him to return briefly. It was a simple request. He agreed. He brought along his best friend and co-worker, Jedediah Har, to keep him company in the car. They parked in the lot and waited. Unbeknownst to them, Quincy Allen was there too. He had earlier tried unsuccessfully to set fire to a different vehicle. Something about that failed attempt seemed to frustrate him, to push him towards something more final. Allen walked up to the car where Har sat and opened fire at close range. The blast tore through the window and into Har's chest. Marquis just steps away, heard the gunshot, but could do nothing. His best friend, the man he had shared a shift with, shared dreams with, died on the spot. Allen vanished once more as he always did, like smoke. August 12, 2002, double homicide at a gas station. By now, Allen had tasted death 3 times. But it wasn't enough. On August 12, 2002, in Dobson, North Carolina, he committed his most brazen attack yet. At a gas station along I-77, Allen encountered Richard Hawks, 53, and Robert Shane Roush, 29, two employees working the night shift. There was no apparent conflict, no words exchanged. Allen simply stepped forward and opened fire. He killed both men with precision, cold as a machine. One of the victims managed to hit the silent alarm before dying, which alerted authorities, but by the time police arrived, Allen was gone. Security footage caught his image finally. Law enforcement now had a face to the phantom. The manhunt began in earnest. Chapter 2. The Arrest. For 2 days, Allen drove across state lines, cutting through towns and highways in a stolen vehicle. He carried weapons ammunition and the quiet confidence of a man who no longer feared the world or what it might do to him. He made it all the way to Mitchell County, Texas, where on August 14th, officers found him asleep in a car at a rest stop. When they surrounded him, he didn't run. He didn't resist. He simply opened his eyes and surrendered as if the game had finally tired him. He was 22 years old. Final toll 4, confirmed dead, countless scarred. Though Allen claimed responsibility for additional crimes including arson and robbery, the full extent of his intentions remains unknown. What is certain is this: 4 people died at his hands in just over a month. 2 others were severely injured. Several families were left shattered. A city and later an entire region would carry the psychological scars of a young man who, for reasons still unclear, decided to become a killer. What stood out about Allen's crimes was their blend of randomness and purpose. He did not kill impulsively, but he did choose victims arbitrarily. He sought no fame, offered no manifesto, and yet his calm demeanor and methodical approach suggested calculation. He was not driven by vengeance. He was not under orders. He killed because something in him, something broken, ancient or possibly monstrous, wanted to. By mid-August 2002, Quincy Allen's name had emerged from the shadows and onto FBI bulletins. His face, once hidden in obscurity, was now plastered across news reports, wanted posters, and police scanners. Yet the man behind those vacant eyes remained elusive, not just physically, but psychologically. Investigators struggled to understand what they were chasing. A career criminal, a thrill seeker, a man possessed. The crimes bore no consistent pattern, no ideological motive, no traceable vendetta. Allen didn't fit the mold of a textbook serial killer, nor did he demonstrate the erratic chaos of an opportunist. Instead, his actions danced between control and madness, measured yet senseless. After the double homicide in North Carolina, police found their first real breakthrough surveillance footage from the gas station. The grainy image showed a slim black man in dark clothing, his walk calm, his hands steady. He carried a sawed-off shotgun like someone might carry a briefcase habitually without thought. The image was sent across state lines, and it worked. An alert officer in Texas, patrolling a rest area in Mitchell County, spotted a vehicle matching the description of one reported stolen in South Carolina. Inside, Quincy Allen lay asleep. His shotgun was beside him. He had driven nearly 300 miles perhaps, planning to flee farther west, or perhaps not planning anything at all. The arrest was quiet. No struggle, no escape attempt. When officers opened the car door, Allen raised his hands. He did not speak at first. He simply stared. But when he finally spoke, the words came easily, chillingly so. A tape recorder and a chilling voice. Shortly after his arrest, Allen began to talk, but not in the usual way. He recorded himself. In one of the most disturbing elements of the investigation, authorities discovered a cassette tape in Allen's possession. On it was a monologue, his own voice flat and unemotional, recounting his crimes in first-person detail. A confession, yes, but also a window into his psyche. This is Quincy Allen, a.k.a. Weird Man, a.k.a. Serial Killer. Yesterday morning I tried to kill someone in Finley Park. He continued describing how he approached the man sleeping on the bench, how he pulled the trigger, and how he felt nothing. No remorse, no thrill, just motion. The recording was devoid of dramatics. There was no grand justification, no sense of pride or guilt, just facts. A list of what he had done and what he intended to do. But what truly unsettled investigators was how ordinary his voice sounded, as if he were describing what he'd eaten for breakfast, not attempted murder. This tape became one of the prosecution's most crucial pieces of evidence, both a confession and a psychological profile captured in real time. The plan to kill a police officer through interrogations and forensic evidence, a larger picture began to emerge, one that hinted Allen may have planned to kill a police officer as his next target. Inside the stolen car were multiple weapons, including the sawed-off shotgun, ammunition, a handwritten list of tasks and supplies, gasoline containers, and lighter fluid, a stolen uniform shirt from a utility worker. Investigators believe Allen had considered dressing as a service technician to get close to an officer, or possibly to escape detection altogether. The details were murky, but the intention was clear. He wasn't finished. He was preparing for something more, something bigger. Whether this was part of a delusion or a coherent plan, no one could say for certain. A fractured mind, early warning signs. As the legal case developed, so did efforts to explore Allen's mental health history. What surfaced was a trail of missed warnings and frustratingly familiar failures. Allen had been hospitalized at least 6 times in the late 1990s for psychiatric issues, including suspected schizophrenia. There were documented episodes of hallucinations, paranoia, and disorganized thinking. Despite these red flags, he had been released each time, often with little or no follow-up treatment. Some experts suggested that his killings were fueled by untreated psychosis, a dissociative state that blurred reality and fantasy. Others argued that Allen knew exactly what he was doing, that his recordings and attempts to destroy evidence revealed a man fully aware of the consequences of his actions. The truth, as always, likely lay somewhere in between, a man battling inner demons, but still capable of planning, executing, and concealing lethal violence. Confessions across state lines. Following his arrest, Allen began cooperating with law enforcement. He admitted to the shooting at Finley Park, the murder of Dale Hall, the killing of Jedediah Har, the double murder at the gas station. He walked investigators through timelines, motives or the absence of them, and even small details, where he bought gas, how he chose his victims, and why he burned the car. In North Carolina, he struck a plea deal, life imprisonment without parole, avoiding the death penalty for the 2 murders committed there. In South Carolina, however, prosecutors had other plans. They sought capital punishment, and with the tape, the pattern, and the confession in hand, they would get it. A.k.a. Weird Man, Serial Killer. Classification: murderer. Characteristics: robberies, arsons. Number of victims: 4. Date of murders: July to August 2002. Date of arrest: August 14, 2002. Date of birth: 1980. Victims profile: Dale Yvonne Hall, 45. Jedediah Har, 22. Richard Hawks, 53. And Robert Shane. Roush, 29. Method of murder: Shooting sawed-off 12-gauge shotgun. Location North Carolina, South Carolina, USA. Status: sentenced to death in South Carolina on February 20th, 2004, July 7th, 2002, about 4 a.m. Allen twice shot a homeless man, James White, who was sleeping on a bench in Finley Park. Deputy 5th Circuit Solicitor John Meters said. July 10, 2002, Allen killed Dale Yvonne Hall, 45. Hall was shot in the head, face, leg, and stomach with a sawed-off 12-gauge shotgun. Afterward, he drove to a truck stop, bought a can of gasoline, and returned to Oakway Drive off Two Notch Road in northeast Richland to douse Hall's body and set it on fire. August 8, 2002. After a confrontation about 10 p.m. with Texas Roadhouse employee Brian Marquis, Allen fatally shot Marquis's friend Jedediah Har, 22, in Har's car. At 10:15 p.m., Allen pursued Marquis to a convenience store and later drove to his home, where Allen set fire to the porch. August 9, 2002, about 2 a.m. Allen set fire to the car of another Texas Roadhouse worker on Park Lane Road. A few minutes later, Allen randomly selected another car to set a fire on Longbrook Road. August 12, 2002, Allen fatally shot Richard Hawks, 53, of Low Gap, NC, and Robert Shane Roush, 29, of Lancaster, Ohio, at a Citgo gasoline station in Dobson, NC. August 14, 2002. At about 6:30 a.m., Allen was apprehended in Mitchell County, Texas. Allen was sleeping in a vehicle at a rest area. February 20, 2004, Allen pleaded guilty to the NC killings. He was later sentenced to life in prison. February 28, 2005, Allen pleaded guilty to the SC killings. Quincy Allen sentenced to life after pleading guilty to 2 NC murders. February 25, 2004. Danbury, North Carolina, AP, a South Carolina man who admitted killing a clerk and a customer at a convenience store in North Carolina, has been sentenced to life in prison. Quincy Allen of Columbia pleaded guilty last week to 2 counts of murder, 2 counts of armed robbery, and felony larceny. Allen was sentenced Tuesday to 2 consecutive life sentences without parole. Prosecutors had been seeking the death penalty. Allen, 24, pleaded in the deaths of 53-year-old convenience store clerk Richard Hawks of Low Gap, North Carolina, and 29-year-old customer Robert Shane Roush of Lancaster, Ohio, at a gasoline station off Interstate 77 in August 2002. Investigators say Allen walked in and, without any confrontation, shot and killed the 2. Authorities say Allen was on the run from Columbia for the deaths of 44-year-old Dale Yvonne Hall in July 2002 and 22-year-old Jedediah Har in August 2002. South Carolina authorities plan to try Allen for those deaths. Attorneys Allen say their client is mentally ill and should serve his life sentence in a psychiatric center. Prosecutors, he has exaggerated some symptoms of mental illness to escape accountability. Prosecutors say Allen should serve his sentence in a general population prison. Prosecutors felt they had more evidence in the North Carolina cases, so they decided to hold his first trial there. There's no word when he may go on trial in Richland County. Solicitor Barney Giese earlier said, as soon as the North Carolina trial is over, he planned to have Allen brought to South Carolina as soon as possible. Allen was brought back to Columbia after Mitchell County Sheriff's deputies captured him sleeping in a car on Interstate 20 in Colorado City, Texas, on August 14, 2002, after he had been on the run for 6 days. This is Quincy Allen, aka Serial Killer, 2005-03-08. The self-recorded audio tape was like a diary entry. Hello, this is Quincy Allen, aka Weird Man, aka Serial Killer. Around 3:45 yesterday morning, I tried to kill someone in Finley Park. The incident marked the start of a month-long summer crime spree in 2002 that left 2 people dead in Richland County and 2 more dead in North Carolina. Monday, the 30-second tape became evidence in the opening minutes of the punishment phase of Allen's capital murder trial. Testimony continues at 9:30 a.m. today. Last week, Allen pleaded guilty to several crimes that were part of the spree, including the 2 Richland County killings. By doing that, Allen bypassed a jury trial and left Circuit Court Judge G. Thomas Cooper, Jr. to determine whether he will spend the rest of his life in prison or die by lethal injection. In February 2004, Allen pleaded guilty in North Carolina to killing 2 men on Aug. 12/2002 in a Dobson, NC gas station. He was sentenced to life in prison as part of a plea bargain. For Allen to be sentenced to die in South Carolina, prosecutors must show there was an aggravating circumstance behind at least one of the killings. In his tape about the Finley Park shooting, Allen described his July 7, 2002 encounter with James White in matter-of-fact tones, even mocking the homeless man at one point. "I guess he didn't see my 12-gauge shotgun," Allen said on the tape. White was shot and injured while he was sleeping on a swing in the downtown Columbia Park. Monday morning in court, White told Cooper he was awakened by someone yelling at him. After being shot in the shoulder, he began yelling and screaming in a successful attempt to get the shooter to run off. After Allen fled, White said he walked to Palmetto Health Baptist Hospital where he was treated. In his opening argument, Fifth Circuit Solicitor Barney Geisy described White's shooting and the incidents that followed as an unprecedented crime spree in this area. Defense attorneys told Cooper the evidence will show that Allen was a byproduct of physical abuse and mental disorders, including schizophrenia. In the span of about a year during the late 1990s, Allen was in and out of psychiatric facilities 6 times, defense attorney Kimberly Stevens said. Last week, Allen admitted to the July 10, 2002 slaying of Dale Yvonne Hall, 45, and the Aug 8, 2002 shooting death of Jedediah Har, 22, along with other crimes committed around the same time. A tragic end to a special day. For Tiffany Todd, Marcus Har's death came at the end of what was supposed to be a special day for her. 5 hours before the shooting death of Hare, his best friend Brian Marquise got down on one knee and proposed to Tiffany Todd at the Texas Roadhouse restaurant on Two Notch Road. Spirits in the restaurant were up and up, she said. Tiffany Todd, along with Brian Marquise and Allen, all worked at the restaurant and were friends. Brian Marquis happened to be off that day and made a special trip back to the Northeast Richland restaurant to propose. But the mood changed when Allen sneaked up behind her. Tiffany Marquise testified. "He was trying to light my apron on fire," she said. That puzzled her, but other actions by Allen that evening led her to call Brian Marquise back to the restaurant, she said. Har drove him to the Texas Roadhouse. Tiffany Marquis was inside and didn't see what happened when Har later was shot and killed outside. "I look outside and I see ambulance lights and police officer lights flashing everywhere," she testified. "I knew something had happened, but I didn't know what." Tiffany and Brian Marquise carry Har's memory with them every day. Deputy Solicitor John Meador-Doors asked her to tell Cooper their child's name. "His name is Brian Jedediah Marquis," she said.